Don't get in the car! The black boy yelled at the billionaire. Turns out, that car was a trap. Don't get in the car! The boy shouted, his voice slicing through the early evening air like a siren. Elijah Carter, barely 12, small for his age but with fire in his eyes, ran barefoot across the cracked pavement of the old gas station parking lot. His voice cracked with urgency. Don't get in! It's a trap! Across the lot, dressed in a tailored navy blue suit that probably cost more than the station itself, billionaire real estate mogul Victor Langston paused, one hand on the handle of the sleek black SUV waiting for him with the door held open by a sharply dressed driver. Victor blinked, confused. What did you say, kid? Elijah skidded to a halt, chest heaving. That car, it's wired. There's something under the seat. You can't see it, but I heard them talking about it. You get in, you die. For a moment, there was only silence. Even the wind seemed to stop. Victor's security detail immediately sprang into action. 2 bodyguards drew weapons, shielding the billionaire and pushing Elijah back. The driver instinctively closed the SUV door with a firm thud and stepped away, hands raised. What the hell is this? One of the guards barked. Victor held up a hand. Wait. He squatted slightly to Elijah's level, narrowing his eyes. Start talking. Who are you? Elijah glanced around, his lips trembling. My name's Elijah. I sweep floors and clean toilets in that motel down the road, but I sleep behind the laundromat. I heard men talking last night. 2 of them. They said someone named Langston would be leaving the foundation event through the back lot tonight. They planted something under that seat. Victor's face hardened. His detail chief, Mason, was already barking into his earpiece, summoning the bomb squad. You expect me to believe a street kid just saved my life out of nowhere? Victor asked quietly, suspicious but shaken. Elijah's jaw clenched. Believe what you want, but check under that seat, please. Just check. Within minutes, a black SUV with flashing blue lights screamed into the lot. Technicians in thick suits swarmed the parked vehicle, now cordoned off with yellow tape. One of them dove under the seat with a scanner and instantly froze. Sir, he called out to Mason, we've got a device. Active trigger. Rigged under the rear seat frame. Victor's breath caught. His knees nearly buckled. Elijah didn't gloat. He didn't smile. He just sat down on the concrete, arms wrapped around his knees, trembling, not from fear, but from adrenaline finally crashing down. 2 hours earlier, Elijah had been hauling garbage from the back of the Harborway Motel when he first heard the voices. The alley behind the laundromat wasn't well lit, but Elijah had sharp ears, trained by a life where staying invisible kept you alive. A black van with no license plate had idled for too long. 2 men leaned against it, talking too casually for a place like this. Langston's car pulls into that lot behind the gas station, back left corner. We rig it under the seat. Auto trigger. No wire. No beep. By the time he's halfway down 9th Street, boom. Elijah froze. Langston. The name sounded familiar. He dug into the pile of discarded newspapers in the motel lobby, and there it was, front page of the City Sentinel. Victor Langston to speak at Downtown Youth Foundation, a new start for the city's underprivileged. Elijah's pulse thundered. He didn't know Victor Langston, but he knew what it meant when powerful people died in car explosions. Chaos. Confusion. No one cared when street kids like him disappeared. But Langston, that would be different. So Elijah waited. He followed. And when he saw the billionaire exiting the back of the foundation building, flanked by guards, he ran. Now, in the aftermath of the bomb discovery, the news vans circled like sharks. Reporters leaned over barricades. Mr. Langston, what's your reaction? Did this boy really save your life? Victor didn't answer at first. He walked toward Elijah, still sitting on the concrete, arms wrapped tight around himself. Why'd you do it? Victor asked, kneeling. Elijah looked up. Because someone needed to. Victor studied the boy's face, dirty, bruised, but proud. You realize what you did tonight? You stopped an assassination. Saved lives. You could have run. You could have said nothing. Elijah shrugged. Figured I'd already lost everything. Might as well try to do one thing right. Victor's heart cracked a little, and in that moment, something inside him shifted. The billionaire used to think in terms of contracts, buildings, profits, but Elijah, this kid from nowhere, had just risked his life for a stranger. No money, no fame, no reward. Victor turned to his security chief. Get him a room, clothes. A hot meal. I want to know where he sleeps, who he trusts, and if anyone's after him now. Then he turned back to Elijah. You're with me now, all right? But you have to tell me everything. Every detail you heard. Elijah hesitated but nodded. I will. But they're not just after you. It's bigger. I heard them say there's more targets. And that someone on your team might be in on it. Victor's face tightened. What? Elijah leaned in, his voice barely a whisper. They said your driver's name. The same one who was holding the car door open. Victor's eyes snapped toward the man who had moments ago stepped aside from the SUV, his personal driver of 6 years. The driver, sensing the shift, turned and bolted. But it was too late. Mason tackled him in 2 strides. The man went down hard, struggling as weapons were drawn. Victor stood frozen, heart hammering in his chest. Elijah's voice cut through the silence one more time. I told you, Mr. Langston. That car wasn't just a trap. It was a message. And so the storm began. The life of a billionaire just saved by a homeless black kid was about to unravel into something much bigger than either of them expected. But neither of them was ready to back down. Not now, not ever. The sun hadn't even risen when Victor Langston's penthouse apartment in Midtown was flooded with flashing blue and red lights. NYPD detectives, federal agents. Even a Homeland Security liaison had been called in. The attempted bombing of a billionaire at a Youth Foundation event was already making national headlines, but what none of them knew yet was that the story was far from over. Victor stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows, dressed in grey slacks and a dark sweater. The skyline glittered behind him, but his focus was fixed on one small figure curled up on the plush leather couch. Elijah, wearing a fresh pair of sweats, and holding a steaming mug of hot chocolate with both hands, looked completely out of place in the luxury apartment. But he didn't care. His eyes were glued to the news playing on the large TV screen. The boy, identity still unknown, is being hailed as a hero. They keep calling me a street kid like it's a disease, Elijah muttered without turning. Victor stepped closer. They don't know who you are yet, but they will. You saved lives. That's not something people forget. Elijah looked up at him with tired eyes. I didn't do it to be famous. I did it because I've seen enough people ignored to know what that leads to. Victor nodded. You're right. He sat down across from the boy, hands steepled. You said last night that there were other targets. That someone might be helping them from the inside. I need to know everything. Every word. Every name. Elijah set the mug down. I didn't catch all their names, but they were talking about foundation donors. You. Senator Clifton. And someone named Wyatt. He owns a tech firm downtown. Victor's brows pulled together. Clifton's the chair of the Senate Oversight Committee on Infrastructure. Wyatt builds security systems for half the city's critical networks. You think this is just about you? Elijah asked quietly. Victor didn't answer, because deep down, he knew. This wasn't a personal hit. It was the start of something far bigger. Before he could respond, Mason stepped into the room. The veteran security chief looked rattled. Victor, the driver, Nick, lawyered up. But there's more. His bank account shows a deposit 2 weeks ago. Offshore. Cayman Islands. High 6 figures. Victor stood up. He's bought. But not alone. Elijah said there was a second guy in that van. Yeah. We think we've ID'd him from security footage near the laundromat. Facial match hits a guy named Dale Havers, ex-military, dishonorable discharge. Ties to a domestic militia group flagged last year by the FBI. Victor turned to Elijah. That sound like one of the guys you heard? Elijah nodded. The one with the rasp in his voice. Smoked the whole time. Called you Langston the puppet. Victor's jaw tightened. Mason handed over a tablet showing surveillance stills. Elijah leaned in and pointed. That's him! Victor turned to Mason. Tell me we're already tracking him. We tried. He went dark last night, but we got a lead. He used a burner phone to call someone in South Bronx. Apartment registered to a Jane Lasky, small-time fixer. No priors, but she's been in and out of City Hall as a clerk. Victor's mind spun. City Hall? So we've got eyes in government? That's the implication. Elijah suddenly stood up, hands balled into fists. Why are you trusting me with this? I'm just a kid. I live behind a damn laundromat. Victor looked at him squarely. Because you noticed what a dozen trained men missed. You acted when everyone else ignored the signs. That makes you part of this now, whether you like it or not. Elijah swallowed hard. Then don't let me get shut out. I want to help. Mason raised an eyebrow. He's a kid, Vic. Victor didn't break eye contact. He's the only one who heard the original plan. If they think he's just some lucky punk, we can use that. What are you saying? Mason asked. Victor turned toward the window again. We let them think he's still on the streets. Invisible, and he listens, just like before. Mason was silent for a beat, then nodded slowly. It's crazy, but it might work. Elijah's eyes lit with something Victor hadn't seen in them before. Not just defiance, purpose. Fine, he said. But I need to go back to the motel. That's where I heard them before. They might come back. You'll have protection, Victor said. But from now on, you don't move unless I know about it. Deal? Elijah nodded. Deal. As the room cleared, Victor's phone buzzed. A text from a blocked number. You were supposed to die last night. He ruined everything. Next time we won't miss. Victor stared at the message, his blood turning cold. He didn't show Elijah. Not yet, but he knew something now with absolute certainty. This wasn't just a warning. It was war, and the enemy wasn't just coming for Victor Langston. They were coming for anyone who dared to stand in their way. Anyone. Even a 12-year-old boy who'd made the mistake of caring. The faded motel on the corner of Madison and 141st was quiet. Too quiet. Elijah stood in the alley behind it, hands in his hoodie pockets, trying to look as invisible as always. But tonight, his eyes were sharper. He wasn't just a kid ducking cold winds anymore. He was bait in a trap neither he nor Victor could fully see. He muttered into the small mic hidden under his collar. No sign yet. You sure they'll come back here? Victor's voice came through the earpiece, calm and focused. If Havers used this place as a meeting spot, someone's bound to return. Just keep your distance and listen. Elijah glanced at the broken-down SUV parked 2 spots over. Mason sat inside, eyes locked on the entrance, ready. Across the street, a black SUV idled with tinted windows. Victor was in there, watching everything unfold. But something felt off. Elijah could feel it in his gut. Minutes ticked by. Then a beat-up brown sedan pulled into the lot. Two men stepped out, both in construction gear, but the way they moved was too careful, too controlled. One of them, stocky and pale with a twitch in his jaw, scanned the perimeter before lighting a cigarette. Elijah's heart skipped. That was the smoker, Havers. The second man stayed close to the car, popping the trunk and retrieving a black duffel bag. Heavy, handled with caution. Elijah murmured, "They're here." "One has a bag, looks weighted," Victor responded quickly. "Don't engage. Just listen. Get as much as you can." He ducked behind the dumpster as the men approached the back staircase of the motel. They paused at the door, room 7B. Elijah's old hiding spot, the same room where he'd first heard them plan the attack. Then came something unexpected. A third figure appeared from the shadows, a woman, medium build, African-American, late 30s, wearing a janitor's uniform. Elijah blinked. She wasn't part of the original group. Havers turned to her and snapped, "You sure the wire's cut this time?" She nodded, voice low. "We tapped the junction box, no feeds. You've got 15 minutes. Havers shoved the duffel into her hands. "Planted at the city grid control room, you know the spot, and make damn sure no hero kids show up this time." Elijah's breath caught. City grid controlled the city's power flow. They weren't just targeting Victor anymore. This was escalation. Then came a voice Elijah wasn't expecting. The second man, taller, mid-40s, clean-shaven, said, "And what about Langston? He's got security crawling everywhere." "Word is he's backing out of the tech summit next week." Havers laughed. "He can back out of whatever he wants. Won't matter when half the city's blacked out and his name's all over the mess." "We're not killing him next. We're destroying him." That hit Elijah hard. They weren't just terrorists. They were orchestrating a takedown, a framing. He whispered urgently, "Victor, they're not going after you directly." "They're going to frame you. The bomb is part of something bigger. You need to pull out." Static. No reply. Elijah tapped the mic again. "Victor." "Mason, anyone?" Still nothing. Suddenly the tall man's head snapped toward the alley. "You hear that?" Panic shot through Elijah as both men reached under their jackets. He bolted, sprinting around the corner, heart in his throat, sneakers slapping against wet pavement. He reached the back fence just as headlights flared to life. The brown sedan peeled out from the lot. Behind him a voice growled, "Got you!" Rough hands grabbed him from the shadows. But instead of being slammed into the ground, he was shoved behind a pile of crates. "Mason." "Stay down," Mason hissed. "Backup's on its way." Gunfire cracked in the distance. Mason drew his weapon and took off toward the street. Elijah, heart pounding, peeked out. Victor's SUV had been hit. The windshield was shattered, but Victor wasn't inside. That sent a jolt of relief through him. Sirens wailed now, louder, closer. The chaos had triggered the block's police alert system. Elijah didn't move. Not until someone knelt beside him. It was the janitor woman. Her voice was urgent, but not unkind. "Kid, you don't know what you're part of. Walk away." He stared at her. "Why are you helping them?" "You're from here. You know what this place means." Her eyes shimmered for a moment. "You think I wanted this?" "You think I got a choice? They got my brother locked up on federal charges. Said they'd make them disappear if I played along." Elijah hesitated. "You could have told someone. Victor could help." She looked away. "You don't know how this works." Then she bolted, disappearing into the maze of alleys. Victor finally arrived, breath heavy, flanked by uniformed agents. "You all right?" he asked. "They're gonna frame you," Elijah said, voice shaking. "They're gonna make it look like you funded the blackout." Victor froze. Mason joined them, blood on his arm. "We lost Havers, but we got their burner phones, and one of them left a laptop." Victor looked at Elijah. "Let's bring them down before they get another chance." Elijah nodded. For the first time, he wasn't just running. He was fighting back. The glass doors of the Langston Foundation headquarters slid open, and Victor Langston walked in with a storm behind his eyes. The once glowing screens of his innovation lab now displayed surveillance footage from the motel sting gone wrong. Elijah trailed behind, scuffed sneakers wet, hoodie still damp from the alley. Victor's chief of security, Layla Torres, stood waiting, arms crossed. "We have more than burner phones now," she said, her tone clipped. "The laptop Mason recovered had an encrypted list, names." "Meeting places, payments." Victor raised a brow. "Whose names?" She hesitated. "City officials, tech contractors, even someone in the mayor's office." Elijah stiffened. "So it really is bigger than you. They're embedding people inside the system." Layla glanced at the boy, her voice softening. "You did good out there."
"You shouldn't have been in that alley, but you got us closer to the truth." Victor turned toward Elijah. "From here on, you don't do this alone. You're part of the team now." Elijah blinked.
"Me? You knew what was happening before any of us did. You saw the cracks." Victor didn't say it aloud, but he meant it. Elijah's warning had saved his life. Layla nodded toward the screen. "There's one more thing. That janitor, the woman from the motel, she used to work here, under a false name. She had access to our internal systems." Victor clenched his jaw. "So they've already been inside." A loud knock on the lab's glass wall interrupted the tension. It was Mason. "They made their move," he said. "Citygrid's west sector is offline. Power's out across 6 blocks. And guess who's getting blamed?" Victor turned toward the nearest monitor. News alerts flashed across it. "Langston Systems involved in Citygrid failure. Federal probe underway, and one that chilled the air in the room. Victor Langston called to testify." "They're moving fast," Layla muttered. "And they're getting reckless," Mason added. "There was a security guard injured in the blackout." Victor walked over to Elijah. "How much do you remember about the conversation you overheard in that motel?" Elijah tried to focus. "They said the plan was to pin it all on you. They wanted the city to think your tech was faulty, that it compromised the power grid." Victor nodded. "Which makes sense. I have contracts with 3 major cities for smart infrastructure. If this sticks, my name's ruined. I won't just lose business, I'll lose credibility." Elijah leaned against the desk. "But what if we flip it? What if we use the trial against them, let them push you into the spotlight, and then blow their whole operation up from the stand?" Victor gave him a long look. "That's bold," Layla cut in. "It's suicide if we don't have enough. We'd need someone from the inside." "Someone who knows the whole chain." Mason stepped forward. "I've been digging into the janitor. Her name's actually Nadine Brooks. Worked city maintenance for a decade. Her brother's in federal prison, trumped up charges. Same month she disappeared into the underground." Victor narrowed his gaze. "She's the key, and she's scared," Elijah said, "but I think I can get to her." Layla turned. "Absolutely not." "We're not sending a kid into that mess again." But Victor raised a hand. "She made eye contact with him. She let him walk away." "That means something." Elijah straightened. "I know where she goes after dark. She drops food off at the old shelter near 116th. I used to see her there. I think that's where she goes when she needs to feel like herself again. Victor took a breath. Then that's our next move. That night, Elijah waited outside the shelter in the shadows. The rain had returned, soft and steady, the streetlights blurring through it. At exactly 10:47 p.m., Nadine appeared, her head low, hood pulled up, a grocery bag in hand. Elijah stepped out slowly. She froze. "Don't run," he said. "I'm not here to trap you." "I'm here because I think you're better than what you're caught up in." She didn't reply. He took another step. "You helped them because they had something over you." "I get it, but you can stop this now, before people really get hurt." Nadine's voice was quiet. "They'll come after me. We'll protect you." She shook her head. "You don't understand. They've got judges, cops, people who vanish you without a trace." Elijah swallowed. "They tried to vanish me too. But I'm still here." She looked at him for a long time, and something cracked in her gaze. "You want proof? I want the truth." Nadine pulled a USB from her pocket. "I made a copy of their schedule. Drops. Contacts, fake IDs, it's all on here." Elijah's hand trembled slightly as he took it. Behind them, a black van rolled slowly around the corner. Nadine's eyes widened. "Run," she whispered. Elijah spun, sprinting toward the alley, Nadine close behind. Gunshots rang out behind them, but Victor had prepared for this. An unmarked car screeched in, and Layla jumped out, firing a warning shot that sent the van swerving away. Nadine ducked into the car with Elijah. She was crying now. "You have no idea what they're planning next." Victor's voice came over Layla's comm. "What did she give us?" Layla glanced in the rearview mirror. "Enough to bring the whole thing down." The federal courtroom in downtown Manhattan buzzed with tension as news crews scrambled outside, lights flashing and reporters jostling for position. Inside, the air was tighter, suffocating even, filled with the weight of anticipation and betrayal. Victor Langston adjusted his tie as he took a seat at the front of the courtroom, flanked by his legal team. He looked calm, collected, but Elijah, sitting 2 rows back, could see it in his eyes. This wasn't just a hearing, this was a stage, and the show had already begun. Across the aisle, the prosecution team laid out boxes of evidence. But Elijah already knew what most of it was. Faked financials, manipulated system logs, even doctored blueprints of city-grid servers, all designed to make Victor look like the mastermind of a tech disaster. And then there was the special witness the court had summoned, Nadine Brooks. She walked in slowly, dressed plainly, eyes low. The courtroom fell silent. The prosecutor stood. "Ms. Brooks, would you please state your employment history with the Langston Foundation?" She swallowed hard. "I worked janitorial shifts under a contract name for about a year." "And during that time, did you gain access to sensitive areas of the building?" I had keys to the lower server rooms, yes." The room murmured. Victor's lead attorney leaned over. "They're baiting her to make it look like she planted the virus from inside." Victor didn't flinch. "Let them dig." But Elijah's heart was hammering. The prosecutor pressed on. "Did anyone ever instruct you to copy system files or remove data?" Nadine paused. "No, I wasn't ordered by anyone at Langston Foundation." The room stilled again. "I was instructed by a separate group, outsiders. They used my brother's prison sentence as leverage. They gave me a list of what to access and when. I had no idea what they were building until much later." The prosecutor frowned. "But you helped them." Nadine turned her eyes toward Victor. "I did, and I regret it every day, but I also recorded them." Whispers spread like wildfire. She held up a small voice recorder. "Every conversation, every drop. I knew if I didn't make it out alive, the truth had to. The judge's gavel slammed down. Outside the courtroom, chaos erupted. News stations broadcasting the twist in real time. Victor whispered to his attorney, "Get that entered into evidence now." Meanwhile, the voice recordings were played, one after another. "This is Havers. Our guy in the city office says Langston's got too much heat coming. Push the blackout, blame the software." Another voice. "We got the judge. He'll delay anything Langston files. Don't worry about legal blocks." The courtroom watched, stunned, as their carefully constructed reality shattered. And then came the final voice. Clear. Crisp. Unmistakable. Councilman Ray Bennett. "Langston thinks he's untouchable. Let's see what happens when his face is tied to the biggest blackout in city history. By the time he figures it out, we'll have moved on to the next target." The judge turned pale. "Is that who I think it is?" he asked. Victor's attorney stood. "Your Honor, we respectfully request the court issue an emergency subpoena for Councilman Bennett and open a federal inquiry into this conspiracy." The courtroom exploded in motion. Papers shuffled. Phones rang. Security rushed out the doors. But as all attention shifted to the scandal unraveling, Elijah noticed something no one else had. A man in a maintenance uniform sitting in the far back row slipped out quietly, too calmly. Elijah stood and whispered to Layla, who was now beside him again. "That's not right." "That guy. He was outside the shelter 2 nights ago. Same face." Layla didn't hesitate. "I'll follow him." Victor's legal team leaned over. "With this new evidence, we can end this." Victor looked over his shoulder, his voice quiet. "This doesn't end here." Meanwhile, out on the street, Layla followed the man through traffic, weaving past parked vans and news crews. He ducked into an alley moving fast, but not fast enough. Layla rounded the corner with her weapon drawn, only to find nothing. Just an open manhole, and spray painted on the wall beside it. Next city, Chicago. Back inside the courtroom, Elijah passed the recorder back to Nadine. She looked at him, tears brimming. "You saved more than just Victor today. You saved me too." Elijah shook his head. "No, you saved yourself. I just reminded you that you could." Victor stepped forward then, towering yet calm, as if everything around him had always led to this moment. He looked at Nadine, at Elijah, then at the judge. "I've built cities, systems, solutions. But today, it was a kid, one the system forgot, who kept me alive." The judge banged the gavel again. "This hearing is suspended, pending further criminal investigations into city officials and third-party contractors." Victor turned to Elijah. "We're not finished, are we?" Elijah grinned slightly. "No, but we're getting closer." Rain poured over the city like judgment, streaking down glass towers and flooding curbs. Victor sat quietly in the back of the armored SUV, staring out the window, the recordings from Nadine still echoing in his ears. They'd broken the silence, pulled the curtain back. But he knew this wasn't the end. It was the start of something more dangerous. Next to him, Elijah scrolled through Nadine's data dump on his cracked tablet. "Victor," he said cautiously, "this goes deeper than anyone thought. These messages, they're time-stamped weeks before the blackout. They'd already planned to sabotage your entire infrastructure." Victor leaned in, eyes narrowing. "And that councilman, Ray Bennett, he wasn't acting alone. Who else is in those messages?" Elijah hesitated, then turned the screen. It displayed a string of text conversations, one name recurring. "Maura Lenz," Victor muttered. "The deputy mayor. Looks like she was coordinating the logistics. Redirecting city resources, rerouting police details. She made sure no one got to your building in time during the power cut. Victor leaned back, rubbing his jaw. We're not just dealing with corporate sabotage anymore.
This is political.
Suddenly the car swerved. The driver cursed.
We're being followed,
he said, checking the mirror. A black SUV, no license plate, trailed too closely.
Pull over now,
Victor ordered. But don't stop.
Turn into the side alley. We switch cars. They ditched the vehicle in an underground lot. Layla met them by the freight elevator, soaked and breathless.
They hit Nadine's apartment, she said. Wiped it clean. Files, hard drives, everything. They even tried to cut her security feed. Victor's gaze turned steel cold. They're trying to erase every link to the truth. Layla nodded. But they missed something. From inside her coat, she pulled out a crumpled photo, an old one. 4 men, standing together at a city gala. One of them was Victor. Another was Councilman Bennett. The other 2? That's Maura Lentz, Layla said. And this guy, I ran facial recognition. His name's Brendan Keller, former military contractor, dishonorably discharged. He now runs a private security firm contracted by the city. Victor's stomach dropped. The same firm that handled backup generators for City Grid during the blackout. Elijah exhaled. They set you up, and they were the ones who got the contract to clean it up afterward. Victor turned to Layla. Where is Keller now? He's based out of a decommissioned armory in Brooklyn, but he moves locations every few days. Victor clenched his fists. Not this time. That night, the 3 of them met in a hidden garage beneath one of Victor's old warehouses. Elijah laid out the plan. A data sting. They'd feed Keller fake intel, make it look like Victor's attorneys were hiding a full list of corrupt city officials and private partners. Then trace the signal of whoever came to steal it. It was dangerous, risky, but Victor didn't flinch. We're not just defending ourselves now, he said. We're going on offense. The trap was set the next day. A phony encrypted file was uploaded to a bait server with just enough breadcrumbs to draw interest. As expected, within hours, a breach came in, traced to a mobile command rig moving across Queens. Victor, Layla, and Elijah followed in a nondescript SUV, shadowing the signal. But as they turned a corner onto an industrial backroad, their car suddenly lost power. EMP, Layla spat. We've been made. Before anyone could react, floodlights exploded around them. Armed men emerged from shadows, guns drawn. In the center stood Brendan Keller. He grinned beneath his grey stubble. Victor Langston. You just don't know when to quit. Victor stepped forward, calm despite the weapons. You staged a blackout that endangered millions, cost lives, and tried to pin it on me. Why? Keller smirked. Because you were in the way. You're a rich man playing savior, but this city doesn't need a savior. It needs control. Layla growled. And you think that means you? Keller stepped closer, unbothered. Everyone has their part to play. Yours was to take the fall. But you didn't stay down. Then, from the shadows, a voice cut through. Neither did I. Nadine stepped forward from the opposite side of the warehouse, holding up her phone. This entire conversation, she said, has been streamed live. To the press, to the feds, to everyone. Keller blinked. And the sound of sirens erupted in the distance. One of Keller's men panicked and fired into the air, but Layla tackled him instantly. The rest of the guards hesitated, then began to scatter. Victor grabbed Keller by the arm before he could flee. You built your empire in the dark, he said, but we just turned on the lights. Police stormed in seconds later, pinning Keller to the ground as news drones hovered above. As Victor stood in the swirling chaos, Elijah walked up beside him. You knew she'd show up, didn't you? Victor nodded. She wasn't ready before. But she is now. Nadine approached, voice shaking. "I was scared of being erased," she said, "but I'm more scared of letting this happen again." Victor smiled faintly. "Then let's make sure it doesn't." The victory didn't feel like a finish line. It felt like a pivot, a beginning.
And Victor knew they'd won this round, but the system, it was still watching.
Still shifting, and somewhere deeper, the next trap was already being set. The storm didn't let up. Sheets of rain sliced through Manhattan's skyline like glass falling from the heavens. Inside Victor's downtown high-rise, a war room had taken form. Maps, monitors, timelines, connections between corrupted officials, compromised systems, and the terrifying name Brendan Keller, everything pinned together in one tangled web. Victor paced in front of the screens, his expression unreadable. Elijah stood nearby, watching the feeds. Nadine sat at a desk, typing furiously, scanning encrypted files they'd recovered from the trap. Layla leaned against the window, arms crossed, eyes scanning the street below like a hawk. "Elijah," Victor said, "tell me the real reason Keller is doing this. It can't just be greed." Elijah didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was low. Keller used to be part of a covert defense program, Project Sentinel. It was shut down after a whistleblower exposed massive civil rights violations. He was dishonorably discharged. Ever since, he's been building his own network, targeting the same institutions that pushed him out. So this is revenge. Yes, but it's more than that, Elijah added. He wants to replace the system. Not reform it, control it. Victor's eyes darkened, and he started by eliminating anyone who stood in his way. That includes me. A loud beep interrupted them. Nadine straightened in her seat. "I've got something," she said. Encrypted video messages sent between Keller and someone named Orion. Looks like codename communication, but the footage is recent. This one's from 2 days ago. She played it. Keller appeared on screen, his tone calm but cold.
"The Langston problem hasn't gone away. If anything, it's exposed more rot than we anticipated. We proceed with Phase 3.
He thinks he's in control. Let's remind him who built the battlefield." Victor's jaw clenched. "Phase 3? Layla turned around. "That sounds final." Suddenly, all the monitors went black. "What the hell?" Nadine scrambled. "I didn't do anything." Then, one screen flickered back on. A countdown. June 1734. Elijah swore under his breath. "They've launched a cyber bomb." "It's targeting your financial infrastructure, everything tied to Langston Innovations, including our back channels. And that includes the safe accounts for the whistleblowers," Victor added grimly. Nadine jumped in. "We have under 18 minutes to stop it, or it'll look like you wiped everything clean yourself." "It'll make the narrative Keller's been pushing real." Victor looked at her. "Can you stop it?" "Not alone." He turned to Elijah. "You used to run cyber defense for the NSA. Can you override it?" Elijah nodded. "Only if I have direct access to the satellite node they're bouncing it through. And that means we need to get to one of the city's emergency comm towers, which they probably control," Layla said. Victor didn't hesitate. "Then we fight our way in." They jumped into action. Armed with flash drives, laptop rigs, and backup comms, they raced through the slick, chaotic streets of the city. Nadine navigated, directing them to a secured operations tower near Harlem. As they approached, they saw it was already surrounded. Private contractors. Keller's men. They had less than 10 minutes. "We need a distraction," Layla said, eyeing a parked construction truck. Victor nodded. "Make it loud." Layla grinned, ran over, hot-wired the truck, and sent it barreling into a fence near the east side of the tower. Guards rushed to respond. In the chaos, Victor and Elijah slipped inside with Nadine right behind them. Up the stairs, past the flickering security lights, into the cold server room. There, Elijah pointed. That console. Connect me. Nadine plugged in the drive, fingers flying. Elijah dove into the code. The countdown ticked. 00459. Victor stood by the door, gun drawn, heart pounding. He could hear footsteps in the stairwell. They're coming. We're almost through, Elijah said. I need 30 more seconds. Gunfire erupted from below. Nadine screamed as a bullet ricocheted off the metal frame, slicing her arm. Victor fired back. 2 guards went down. The third ducked for cover. 00211. Elijah's fingers moved faster than seemed human. He whispered code under his breath like a prayer. Then suddenly, everything went silent. The countdown froze at 007. Got it, Elijah gasped. It's neutralized. Victor helped Nadine up. We're not done. That only stopped the bomb. Nadine held up another file. I found something else. Keller didn't just build this for revenge. He's been selling access to foreign buyers, the blackout. The cyber attack. It was a test run. He planned to auction off the tech to the highest bidder. Victor's breath caught. He's a traitor, Nadine nodded. And he's hosting the auction tonight, in person. In the old courthouse he converted into his base. Layla's voice came through the earpiece. We've got company pulling up outside, SUVs armored. Victor helped Nadine to her feet. Then we finish this. Tonight. She stared at him, blood on her sleeve, but fire in her eyes. Let's end him. Victor turned to Elijah. Send a message to every reporter who ever questioned me. Tell them to come to that courthouse. No press embargo. No filters, just the truth. And for the first time in weeks, Victor allowed himself a bitter smile. If Keller wants to sell the future in the dark, he said, we're going to drag the whole world in there with flashlights. Thunder rolled above the courthouse as Victor Langston stepped out of the black SUV, his long coat catching the wind. The rain hadn't let up since that afternoon, and now it felt biblical. But he wasn't here to run. He wasn't here to hide. He was here to finish this. Across the street, vans from every major news network idled with cameras trained on the building. Reporters huddled under umbrellas, live streaming, whispering updates as they watched the billionaire. Many of them had previously crucified. Now walked calmly toward a place none of them had ever been allowed inside. Inside the courthouse, Keller's lair, was a fortress of deception. Originally gutted and remodeled, it had been converted into a lavish, high-tech war room and auction house. But tonight wasn't for bidders. Tonight was the finale. And Brendan Keller had no idea the curtain was about to be yanked down in front of the entire world. Elijah tapped his earpiece. We're in place, cameras are live, feed is clean. Full broadcast uplink. Everything you say in there goes to the public. Nadine, her arm bandaged, but her spirit sharper than ever, checked her phone. We've already got 1.2 million viewers and climbing. Victor stared at the looming doors. Let's show them who Brendan Keller really is. The doors creaked open, and Victor stepped into the grand chamber. Brendan Keller stood at the far end, flanked by 2 of his men. He was calm, dressed immaculately in a 3-piece suit, sipping a glass of something expensive. On the screen behind him flickered a global map with blinking coordinates, potential buyers still waiting in digital lobbies to bid on stolen defense technology. Victor Langston, Keller said with a smirk. Always on time, always dramatic. Did you bring your little street prophet with you? Victor didn't flinch. No, but I brought the whole damn country. He nodded slightly, and every hidden camera began to transmit. Keller's smirk faltered as screens in the room came alive with live feeds, press, social media, even law enforcement. What did you do? Keller's voice dropped. I gave the world a front row seat, Victor said. No more secrets. No more shadows. Keller laughed once, sharp and bitter. You think this will stop anything? I built a network, Langston. You can't cut off the head because there are a dozen more ready to rise. Victor's eyes narrowed. But you're the one they follow. And without you, your empire crumbles. At that moment, a side door burst open. Layla entered, dragging someone by the collar. It was Agent Paul Graves, one of the federal officials Keller had bribed, now in cuffs, pale and shaking. This one decided he'd rather confess live than go down with you, Layla said. Graves stammered. He threatened my family. Told me I'd vanish like the others if I didn't move the funds through. He's been laundering weapons tech through fake diplomatic channels. Keller's face turned stone. You're bluffing. None of this will hold up. Victor pulled a device from his pocket and tossed it on the table. Here's the full audit. Every offshore account, every stolen identity. Every name! The room fell silent. Then, suddenly, a shot rang out. One of Keller's guards tried to pull a weapon, but Layla was faster. She took him down in one motion, the gun skidding across the marble floor. Keller didn't blink. He simply walked to the center of the room, raised his hand slowly and said, You win this one, Langston. You're not just going to prison, Victor said. You're going to be remembered as the man who tried to sell out his country and got caught by a kid who shouted the truth on the street. Elijah's voice came through the earpiece. Victor, it's done. FBI teams are entering. They're taking control now. Outside, the flood of agents began. News cameras captured it all. Brendan Keller escorted in handcuffs, his empire of lies unraveling in real time. Hours later, as dawn broke, Victor stood on the courthouse steps. Reporters shouted questions, but he ignored them for a moment. He turned to the boy who now stood quietly beside him. Trey. You saw something that none of us did, Victor said, and you had the courage to speak up. Trey looked up at him. I just didn't want you to get hurt. Victor knelt beside him. You saved me, Trey. And more than that, you reminded me who I used to be before all this power made me forget. Nadine stepped forward, placing a hand on Victor's shoulder. Tell them what they need to hear, she said softly. Victor turned to the cameras. For years, I built a business thinking I could outsmart the system from the inside. But corruption isn't just about bribes and lies. It's about silence. About who's willing to speak when it matters most. He glanced back at Trey. This young man reminded me that truth doesn't always come from those with power. Sometimes it comes from the sidewalk. He looked directly into the lens. If you've ever felt like your voice doesn't matter, remember this moment. Because it does. And because of one boy who shouted when the rest of us stayed quiet, something truly evil was stopped. He stepped back, leaving the cameras to capture Trey in the light of sunrise. Let this be your reminder. Speak up, even if your voice shakes. Because the truth is louder than power, and courage can come from anyone, any age, any street. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, because stories like this, they need to be heard, and we need your voice to help tell them.